Professor Aloysius Tam surveyed his visitors from behind his thick spectacles. For a long moment he was silent. Then he rested his elbows on his desk, stippled his fingertips, and began to speak. "You've met Julius, so you know the kind of man he is. He can be very secretive at times, but he has been my friend since our university days together. His career took him into rocket science. He worked in Britain and America for years. I'm probably the only person he would call a friend." Alvin held up the newspaper article. "Do you believe his story?" "No, of course not. Not for a minute." Tom shook his head vigorously. "Julius is not a man concerned with money. His birds are his possession, and he certainly wouldn't steal money or sell scientific secrets, nor do any to betray a trust." "If that's true, why is he under suspicion?" asked Cinchita. "Julius had a theory about that," Tom explained. "Rocket science is a very specialized field. A lot of famous scientists are involved in it, and whenever famous people compete with one another, there is always an element of jealousy. So someone who was jealous of him made a false accusation?" asked Wheeling. "Or they framed him to cover up their own crime," Tom added. "Julius wasn't sure who was behind it. As far as he was concerned, he'd been disgraced, so he came back to Birdwalk. That was a little over a year ago. He lived very quietly, kept to himself. I saw him occasionally for lunch, or he'd drop by at my office for a chat." And then his face clouded with anxiety. "What happened, Professor?" Alvin pressed. "About a week ago Julius called and told me his stuffed Alaskan eagle had gone missing. He was very upset, very agitated. He also sounded, well, frightened, might be the best word to describe it." Mars leaned forward in her chair. "What could have frightened him?" "He didn't tell me, but I could hear it in his voice. Then I had a strange phone call a couple of days ago. A couple of days later, it was someone asking me if I knew Julius Young." "Who was it?" queried Rafi. "The caller didn't leave a name, but I didn't like the sound of him." Tom shuddered. "I thought he sounded quite threatening. It was a very nasty voice." "How and what did you do?" Whaling wanted to know. "I called Julius and told him, and he flew into a panic. And then last night he called me at home. He said he didn't feel safe at Birdwalk anymore, and was moving out, but he didn't mention anything about anyone searching his house and knocking him out. He just said he booked a removal company and begged me to go out to the house and keep an eye on the things." Tom gave a grim smile. "I had to cancel my 9 o'clock lecture." "Where did they take all his furniture?" quizzed Azizu. "To the storage depot, and the birds went to an aviary, where they'll be well looked after." "So where is Professor Young now?" Alvin asked. "That's just it. I don't know." Tom threw up his hands in despair. "He didn't tell me." "But surely you asked him where he was?" Alvin demanded. "Of course I did. I said if he was in trouble he should let me know where I could contact him. But he didn't. He said it would be better for me if I didn't know." "What do you think he meant?" Cinchita asked. "I suppose he thought I'd be safer if I knew nothing." "And maybe he was right." Tom hesitated. That man with the nasty voice told me again, just over an hour ago. He demanded to know where Julius was. I think you should talk to the police, Wailing said firmly, glancing at Alvin. Julius told me not to, Tom stressed. But you might be in danger too, Azizu reminded him. That's not important, Tom stated. I had to help Julius, didn't I? How could I have refused? I'm the only friend he's got. Did Professor Jung ever mention any names? Alvin probed. Like someone called the snake? Tom looked at him, startled. Never. Who's the snake? A master criminal, Alvin replied. We suspect that he might have something to do with all this. Tom got up and gripped the back of his chair. What do you think I should do? Alvin frowned. Where do you live, Professor Tom? I have a small apartment here at the university. Sometimes we work all night, you see, and then I have to give lectures the next day. Then stay there, Alvin told him. Don't leave the university, don't go anywhere alone, and be on the lookout for strangers, or anyone who might be following you. I just don't understand, Tom said, dabbing sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Why all this fuss about an idol? Sinchita met his troubled gaze. Professor Tom, would you happen to know where Professor Jung was still working on a rocket project? Tom shot her a strange look. After what happened in America, Julius swore he'd never have anything to do with rocket science again. But he'd still have records of his work, wouldn't he? Wheeling asked. Tom smiled faintly. My dear girl, when scientists develop rockets and missiles, they work in highly guided facilities. They certainly can't take their work home. Everything Julius Jung knows about rocket science is safely stored in one place only. Tom tapped the side of his head. It's all in his brain. When Alvin and his investigators left the university, they headed towards the nearest burger restaurant. Rafe was still avoiding Mars and walked ahead with Alvin. Mars sat at his back. Man, she hissed. Beside her, Sinchita shook her head. Not man, Mars, boys, she corrected her friend. Then she corrected herself with a cynical smile. Actually, there's no difference. All men are boys. When they were seated at the table, munching on their food, Alvin leaned forward. There's something I don't understand, he began, squirting more ketchup on his fries. Why didn't Professor Tom want to talk to the police? If one of my friends was in danger, I'd try to get all the help I could. And who was the man who rang Professor Tom? Wailing wondered out loud. She studied the feeling of her brother, and as though the answer might be lying inside it. The one with the nasty voice? I'll bet it was the snake, said Azizu, through a mouthful of fries. Or one of his men, Alvin sucked on his jaw. Maybe the same one who was shooting at us this morning. Sinchita frowned over the top of her burger as she took another bite. I don't think this case has got anything to do with the missing idol. I think about rocket science, and if all the secrets are in Julius Jung's head, maybe he's been kidnapped. By the snake? Asked Rafi. Maybe, Sinchita nodded. Maybe the person in America who disgraced Professor Jung was working with the snake, suggested Mars. Maybe they disgraced him first so he'd come back here. And the snake could get him? Cinchita arched an eyebrow. Isn't that what they call a conspiracy theory? No, grunted Rafe. It's what they call a damn theory. I wish John had been more honest with us, Wheeling cut in quickly as Mars reddened. I mean, how can you help a client who doesn't tell you everything? Maybe he did tell us everything, Azizu thought out loud, and all eyes swung towards him. What do you mean? Asked Cinchita. Well, maybe he told us everything he knew, said Azizu. It's what he didn't know that frightened him. Great thinking, Azizu. Alvin twisted his straw out of shape. He knew that someone was after him, but not why. He knew that he was in danger, but not why. He knew he wasn't safe in his own house, but not why. The silence that followed was broken by a tinkling sound from Ma's mobile phone. When she answered, she clapped her hand around the phone and turned away, but not before the others had heard her say, Edmund, not now.